We're going to talk about is Jag. Milady Jag Chatta. She began her investing journey overseas. She was living in India, watching the Not Your Average Investor show. She was motivated to sell her New York co-op and then diversify that into multiple markets. She looked at multiple turnkey providers to have this diversified strategy to do a 1031 in different places. And what she realized was that not all turnkey providers are built the same. And particularly one of them had created this timeline saying that this is going to be ready in 2 weeks. So then you're going to be able to like divest into here. And then it wasn't ready in 2 weeks. And then it missed the 1031 deadline. And she was just had to just take the giant tax hit because you can't really do anything because 1031s are strict like that. And, that was a big pain for her. So when she finally, kind of like when she learned that lesson, that's when she was just like, all right, it's less important to diversify as much as having a true 1031 partner and somebody that can like bring these properties to light. But I'll stop there before we get too far down the path. People that have a bad 1031 experience. Talk to me about that.
It's tough. It is. The process itself is not tough if you are just leaning on people. And that's where I would say find the right people who know what they're doing and have a track record of doing it well and let them do it. And then you can have a completely passive experience. If you are trying to do it completely on your own and are identifying companies, it's just very strict. You have to hit your really particular dollar amounts, and the timelines are not up for negotiation. So, like when the clock starts, there's no stopping it. You can't pause it. You can't turn it around. The clock starts, you're going, and boom, you have to find that exact puzzle piece within that certain amount of time. So I think the biggest issue that I see with people having 1031 horror stories is people who do not have enough product to choose from. So if you're going somewhere and they say, oh, yeah, we have some that should fit. Well, what if those sell before your timeline starts and now you don't have those same options and now you're trying to figure it out? Or in Jag's situation of really banking on a new construction or a renovated product being available by your timeline, that's probably a risk that I would recommend nobody ever take, is banking on a product that is not already ready for sale, even factoring that into your timeline. Super risky. Love if it works out for you, but I think the primary thing is going with a company who has a really good relationship with your 1031 provider. That's going to help a lot too, because communication breakdown, that could be the issue from the beginning, even if your inventory options are perfect. So those are the two big things: is do you have a turnkey provider who can communicate really well with your 1031 provider? And do you have ample inventory to choose from so that if stuff swaps around, people buy your one before you're able to secure it, that it's not even an issue. You know that there are several options to choose from.
Let's dive into that. I want to rewind a second.
Okay.
Anybody that isn't super familiar with a 1031, right? It is a way to take an asset and exchange it for another asset and defer the taxes from the capital appreciation, aka you buy $100,000 thing in New York. 10 years later, it's $1 million. Being able to use that extra $900,000 in appreciation and reinvest it without paying taxes to start makes a really, really big difference on what you can reinvest. And in order to do that, there's certain timelines to hit. I believe you need to identify a property before you sell. And then once you sell, you have a certain amount of time to go to like buy that actual property. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, in a nutshell. Yeah,
So that's it in a nutshell,
Yeah.
right? So what happened specifically here was Jag had identified a property. It didn't end up meeting the timeline, and they didn't have one coming, she didn't have like an alternative property picked out. And that could have been an education gap, or it could have been a believing what you hear and believing that, like they're really going to make this time. So this really comes fundamentally to this like topic that we talk about, where there is fake turnkey and real turnkey out here. And some turnkey companies are basically telling you like they don't own the asset that they're selling you, right?
Also,
you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so if they could be kind of playing the wholesaler mix of the kind of the representative of like, okay, I know what you're looking for. I'm pretty sure that I can find it for you, and almost the matchmaker, which is different. Or they could just be acquiring the properties themselves and flipping ownership, maybe having a temporary ownership versus just really knowing the product.
Yep.
Or it could be in the world where maybe they, in this situation, I'm curious if it truly was them not having a really good understanding of 1031 and those deadlines. And so for them, they could say, they just might not be taking the timeline seriously of like, oh yeah, you really want it by the 4th of July. Like we should be able to get there versus and no, it's not that I just really want it. It's that I have to have it in order to make this deal work. And so it could just be a lack of experience dealing with those sort of deadlines and timelines and then not communicating it properly.
Yeah. Versus the, you know, what we keep saying that like real turnkey is that you're not buying the property on a promise. You're buying a property that is already finished, has a renter in it, and is owned by the person selling it to you before you even step into this.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what JWB does, and that's what you want to be looking for in a true turnkey provider. And that will definitely mitigate the risk of missing this timeline, right? This like cleanliness of having it all ready to go before you're signing a piece of paper and identifying this is one piece of it. But then there's another piece of it. Like Leslie says here, the key is to identify lots of options during the 45-day window of the 1031. You have 6 months to close on one of them. So give yourself lots of choices. And a lot of turnkey operators, even if they're doing it right, they're just not operating at the scale where they can give you a whole bunch of choices the way that JWB does, because JWB has figured out how to build to rent and into lots, plus acquire properties, and they just have this like conveyor belt of properties that they always have.
Yeah, exactly. And we are confident in the product and we're confident in our ability to reproduce the product, I think is the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. It's like the widgetization of it
Mhm.
that makes a like asset, feel so similar, even though, as we all know, homes and residents are infinitely different.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. So we're going to hit a little bit on that some more. But that being said, right? So then Jag, what she realized was she has watched this show for a bunch. She realized that that they could trust us. She learned this whole like team first approach. And learned kind of like the nuances of this like seamless 1031 exchange execution. She calls it her MBA. Her unofficial real estate MBA. So now Jag is a client, of course, and a member of the community.
And I think a side piece too is when we talk about working backwards is, can I go ahead and find a turnkey company who maybe already has a relationship with an intermediary, a 1031 intermediary?
Mhm.
And if you do that, start there. Like, let's go ahead and have those conversations, because if you already found a company that already has that relationship, the odds of their track record in successfully executing that is probably a lot higher than someone that doesn't
True.
even have a referral for it.